these guys in. Hello, hello, hello. We've got Liam who's joining. And Annette. So I'm just letting you guys know, obviously, same as if you kind of got an email from me, you should know these sessions. I record them so that you can run through them afterwards and you can kind of go through them. So if you don't want to be on camera, you just turn your camera off, no problem. But today we're going to work on two things in specifically, because it's kind of week 3, I guess, at this point. So the other 2 videos you can watch. But at this point, I want to take it back a little step. And I'd like to run through some question and answers from things we've done before. And also I'd like to look at some strumming today. So we're going to look at what happens in the right hand a little bit more and what goes on there. First of all, I just want to check. Liam, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Great, fantastic. It's lovely to see you, by the way. I know you've been messaging back and forth with Karis this week.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah, good. It's great to see you. So what we're going to do is, first of all, and you're going to have to remind me of your name, because otherwise I'll end up calling you Yido, which is your screen name, all day again.
Oh,
so, remind me of your name.
And I am
Nim.
Nim.
Great, fantastic. Sorry, I know you told me last week.
That's right.
Don't remember it. So Nim, you just asked me a question about last week. So you said last week you kind of felt a little bit lost because you hadn't seen the first session as much, and you wanted to run through the frets again really briefly. And I think that matches up pretty well, because I think, Liam, you've literally only been sent the video and haven't really had time to watch it all, and there hasn't been long enough with the guitar. So we're going to run through some basics again and catch up on some questions on those, and I want you guys to ask as many questions as you can as we go through this bit. The very worst that I can say is we're not going to cover that today, or don't worry about it, it's on another video. But I'd rather you ask the question, because you might ask something that I go, we didn't cover that. And it's going to be useful for not just you, but everyone. And actually that's a good thing. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to share screen with you guys, and we're going to look at the chords and how to read them with one more time. We're going to go through them with a little bit more detail on them. Okay. And then look at how those frets and things line up. So let me grab my sheet. And Liam, how did you get on with the chords? Because I know you got your guitar today, or yesterday, was that?
Got it today. Well, I borrowed it from my friend. So he dropped it round today. So I've kind of had a quick look through the chord sheet. Had to go at the E minor and the Asus 2, but I'm not sure if I'm making the right sound, to be fair.
Yeah, great. So we'll take a look at that too. That's good. So you've had the guitar for a day. All right, that's good. Cool. Let me share my screen with you guys, and then I kind of won't see you as much, but I can see you a little bit. If you guys give me the international symbol for you can see my screen, which is either a yes or a thumb up. Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. So this is the sheet with the woman who I don't know who she is. She's from some stock image somewhere, but this is our sheet. So the first thing we kind of looked at is this E minor chord here. Okay. And so you've already worked through this one a little bit, Liam, already, but just to check that everything's going correctly, this part here, this black line, is the same as this white line on the guitar here. And you're going to have something similar on your guitar. That's called the nut, by the way. Getting all technical, that's called the nut. And then each kind of space along is a fret. Okay. And so this chord here, it's telling us that where the fingers go is on the 2nd fret. So we call anything on this space here would be fret 1. Anything on this space here would be fret 2, fret 3. And then the strings are going down. And if we want to make it really exciting, you can think of it a little bit like an Excel spreadsheet where we have rows and columns. We've got strings going this way, and we've got our frets going this way, and we have to like match it up. Or maybe battleships, considering we're all stuck inside having to play board games all day long. So battleships is a pretty good example. So as long as your fingers can kind of go down like this, and that's okay. Now, Liam, I realize after speaking to Nim, I should ask you whether you're left-handed or mirrored right now. with your guitar?
I'm just trying to think, actually. I think I might be mirrored. I'm right-handed,
Okay.
or maybe I'm...
Is the only question you have to ask yourself is the thickest string closest to your face on the guitar?
No, it's not. No.
Okay. Then normally there's two ways of thinking about this. If you've picked it up and that's the way that you really want to sit, with the highest string closest to your face, the thinnest string, then that's the kind of test I might go, oh, maybe he's going to want to play left-handed.
Okay, so
you're kind of sat like a left-handed player. Yeah, that's it. This is great.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, this is great that you said Nim, because otherwise I wouldn't have thought that today.
I'm glad I've got it facing the right way though, upwards.
Yes. Yes.
The right way.
Hello, Annette, as well. Sorry, I just saw you joined us. Hello. We're just going through some chords here on the screen. Do you play already, Annette? I can't hear you. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'm having trouble with my laptop. Yeah, I've been playing for a while, but never really kind of learned properly. Just learned what I needed to know.
Okay, cool. Well, the beginning bit of today, if you play already, might feel like it's very basic, but if you stick with me, some of the exercises we're going to do later on are really like a sliding scale for you can make them as difficult or as easy as you want. So a little bit later in the session, there'll be something that's definitely for you, and some of this stuff in the beginning, if it's good for you, that's good. If it's not, don't worry, just stick with us and you'll be right. All right, cool. So we're gonna we've got this E minor chord here, and you're just gonna try and get your fingers down on there and get them to the right place on the guitar and match them up with, okay, what fingers are we trying to use? So you see how this first finger here is on what we call string 5, because it's, and the way we number the strings is I number them with the one closest to the floor is called number 1, or the thinnest one, the highest sounding one is closest to the floor. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then, so this is on string 5, fret 2. And if your guitar is in tune, which it doesn't have to be for today, it's actually not so much of an issue today because I can send you a video. It's going to sound like that, assuming my guitar's in tune, which I'm pretty sure it is. And that's just that note, sorry. But if you strum all the strings, which is what this chord's about, you would strum all the strings. It should sound like that. I'm a little bit distorted today. So all I want you guys to do is to try and play that chord, and you just pop your fingers, squeeze them into the frets, and they might hurt a little bit, and then strum all the strings. Yeah, good. Liam, that sounds right. That's the right kind of thing. And just keep going. So when you've got it, then you're going to take your hand off and you're going to find the chord again. And if you want the slightly more advanced version of that, you shut your eyes and you find all the chords. All right, that's when we know we've got them. So what I'm going to do from this end is I'm going to hit mute on you guys for the moment, so you can practice and not feel self-conscious. But you can unmute yourself and go, hey, does this sound right at any point in the session? That's no problem. I just want you to have a chance to kind of practice it. Okay, so the first thing, I want you just to sit there and practice the E minor. The next chord that we're going to work on, we're going to do, ooh, you did the A sus2. So you could do the A sus2 would be fine. So you could do the A sus2 would be fine. Or we could try a different one today that we haven't done before in any of the other sessions, which is this E7 one here. Okay, this one's a little bit different. Just going to go and work it out. And I'm going to play some guitar while you guys do that. And you have a little bit of time to think about it. And you can just unmute yourself and ask questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to play for the next couple of minutes for you to have a chance to work it out and have some practice. Okay? So the principle here when we're learning these chord shapes is one hand at a time, really. So if you're kind of strumming the left hand, the other hand, the right hand, sorry, that's great already. But when you think about, okay, trying to get this shape in your hands, the thing you have to make the easiest for anything is to know where these shapes are in your hand and attach a name to them. So for instance, the E minor one is probably the best one to like, it's probably gonna be your first chord where you go, yeah, I know that chord, E minor, right? And you want to be able to move to and from it to the other chords and know the name of it, because it's going to come up a lot. So one of the things that I really love as an exercise is taking just the left hand and one other chord, and it can be in a chord of your choice. You take minimum 2 chords and we move between them, and I call this air guitar. You just move between them as fast as your hands will allow. And if it's too easy, you do it with your eyes shut. So I could take E minor and E7, for instance, which is a bit of an odd change. And I just watch my hands, and then I can check whether they're on the right strings. And it's a good way to check. This is a very like tangible way to check that you know something before we get the other parts involved. Because I always think of sound as a result on the guitar. And in the beginning, when we're starting, like nothing sounds very good. And it's because we haven't done all the different bits of practice. And so if you think, okay, if I want to sound good, I need to do all these little different things, and eventually I'll get the kind of sound I want. So if your guitar doesn't sound good right now, don't worry. It's not what it's about in the beginning. It's about just trying to get these basic mechanics down. So you can do E minor and E7, or you could do any other 2 chords from this sheet. And you're going to move back and forth between them and just focus on trying to get that left hand, I think, for all of you, unless Annette is mirrored, and then your right hand, but either way, it's your fretting hand is the one we're on. Annette, question for you. Do you have this sheet? Are you on my list and you got this sheet?
Yeah, I've downloaded it.
Fantastic. Okay, you got a sheet. I wanted to check because last week some people didn't have it, so that's good. And so you can do that with either this chord or any of the other chords in there. But I want you to make sure you're doing that kind of back and forth idea. And the only reason we're doing it is if it's a struggle. That's like the only point of learning, is if it's a little bit of a struggle. So if you're finding it a challenge, good. If you're finding it like, oh, I could do this in my sleep, it's the most boring thing ever, then you probably need to pick a different set of chords after a few minutes. And that's your job to manage, because I can't always see what you do. But that's kind of your job to work that out. All right, so pick a couple of chords and you're going to work between them, just air guitaring back and forth. So what I want to say was in the last week's session, so in week number 2, which I've also stuck these on YouTube now. Just, I mean, no one looks at my channel, but you guys might if you want to go and restudy this stuff. And at the beginning, what I did was of last week's sessions is I did a quiz on these 9 chords. And really, I think of these like just knowing where those shapes are. You should be able to kind of quiz them and know where they are on the guitar and be able to find them. And I know some of them have funny names. So like G6 is here, right? And we can just call that G for the moment. C major 7 is here, right? But you can just call that C. It's your version of C because all of these are just using 2 fingers. And that's really the idea, is we want to kind of be able to play as much as we can with just 2 fingers in the beginning, because it gets us kicked off and we're able to actually kind of jam some stuff. So you should be quizzing yourself. And so I did a quiz last week in the session, which you can go back and you can test yourself on and see if you were able to do it. But also you can just get someone in your house to quiz you, or you can quiz yourself as much as possible, because getting these down is really important. And it's that recall. You think you know them until you flip the paper over and you have to do it without the sheet. And people say it's fine until they come into, like, obviously I teach a lot of students and they're like, yeah, I know them. And then they come in and sit down. I'm like, all right, I'm going to quiz you on them. And they're like, oh. And so then we really find out what we have to learn. So I really encourage you to quiz yourselves on these. Now, Nim, you mentioned about the frets. Does it make more sense this time? Was that helpful? I'll just unmute you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think I jumped in the deep end yesterday. I've got a better idea.
Yeah, good. Last week we were kind of on a continuation. That's good. And Liam and Annette, from what we just did, or any of the stuff so far, do you have any more questions about it? Because I'm okay to use some of this time for Q&A as well, and then we'll look at the strumming in kind of 5 or so minutes time. No, you're fine. And you don't have any questions about anything so far, or you feel pretty good about the things? All right, good, cool. And Liam, the same for you, or how? Let me unmute you. Sorry.
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, yeah, I was just doing the. I was fretting between E7 and E7 and E minor. I keep tracking my kind of like finger number 2 on the other string as I'm doing it, which I've noticed. So I don't know if it's how I hold it, and if I'm holding it a certain way, but
it's unlikely to be. It's probably, if you're tracking your finger and it's just ending up on the wrong string, you're probably just a normal human being like everyone else when we learn the guitar. And the fact, there's 2 things. Is like in the beginning, you're going to have to use your eyes to tell where it is. And so it's actually good for you to like check, but also it's going to teach you what the strings feel like. Like I can tell what string I'm on just by how they feel. But I've been doing this a long time. But that's something you're going to develop too over time, is like, oh, I can tell I've hit the wrong string there. And then, and the other thing is it's just kind of your fingers are learning the shapes still. So it's kind of like learning to walk with your fingers. This thing is like the most unnatural thing in the whole world. Like natural is living in a cave and kind of trying not to die from puddle water. All right, and we're sat here playing a stringed instrument. This is crazy. So your body has no preparation for this at all. So it just takes some time to get used to, no matter who you are, where you are, kind of what you're doing. So that fingers hitting the wrong string thing, 100% normal. And you just have to kind of be okay with the sound that makes for a little while, because that's how it is. And that's still true for me now. The only different, like I still make mistakes, and when I'm learning something, it still doesn't sound good. The only difference when you're in the beginning is you don't have much to play for enjoyment yet. So that's what we're going to work on today, is trying to get you to a point where you can kind of play for enjoyment a little bit. And I can show you what that path looks like. And it requires a little bit of hard work, but it's the best when you start being able to do it. Cool.
So,
quick yes, go for it, Nim.
You know, when you're pressing the strings,
yes.
You actually put them against the wall? Does it actually have to touch against the guitar, or is it just?
That's a good question. A really good question, actually. Let's talk about that for a second, because maybe it doesn't. And maybe it does touch the wood. We'll talk about what's going on. So when we're on the guitar, and this is something, this is really good. And actually, the more questions you have like this are great. So don't hold back on them, because someone will be doing this with the videos, and I won't have even thought about this, because that's what they do. So when you're on the guitar, let's talk about where the sound actually comes from. The sound comes from this metal string touching the metal fret, and then the sound is made kind of from this distance to here, right? And so that, it doesn't matter where within this fret I actually press, as long as it's touching down that string on the metal line. Now, what that means is the further back I am in the fret line, like the harder I have to press to get it to touch down on that fret. So if I'm close to this is called the headstock up here, by the way. If I'm pressing close to the headstock end, I'm going to have to press harder and it's going to hurt my fingertip than if I'm close to the body side of it. So you want to get your fingers as close to the body side of the guitar as you can. And that's like in the fret lines. You see I can't quite get both my fingers over to the metal line. That's okay. But you want to try and get them as close as possible for each chord you do. And then that's going to mean you have to press less. And it might mean that you don't actually have to press down on the wood for it to make the sound. Because sometimes if you're right over this side, the wood might be too far depending on your guitar. So when I'm pressed here, you can't see this, but I'm not pressing on the wood. I'm just holding it down until it touches the metal. And this is one way that people, when they're kind of first starting out, even for the first few years, they'll burn their hands and wrists out as they're trying to like press down too hard. So the answer is, as long as you're getting a sound, no, it doesn't have to be on the wood. But if you're not getting a sound, it's either going to be because you're not pressing down hard enough or you're not close enough to the fret line of the guitar. You don't want to be on the fret line because often that'll kill the sound, but just close to it is best, and that'll save your fingertips a little bit. All right. Cool. So we're going to do a few more of these chords, and then we're going to look at some strumming in a minute from these, but you guys can keep training with. And what I was going to recommend is you take these chords. These chords are used in so many songs, and actually we're doing 2 more weeks of this after today. Next week was meant to be the last one, but I've added another week. So we've got 2 more weeks. And at the end of it, I'm going to give you guys, as a little present, a sheet of different songs that you can go learn using these chords. So that's your incentive to go practice them. Is you get a list of there are 10 different chord progressions, but you can use them to play hundreds of songs. And you can go kind of play with those at the end. But what I want you guys to do at the moment is you're going to make up little chord progressions. So the first one that we did last week, we did of 4 chords, which is quite hard, but we're going to do one of 3 today, which is E minor, E7, and A sus2. Wait, is that the order I wanted? Yeah, that's right. So E minor, E7, and A sus2. And so I just want you to practice around with those 3, getting used to and focusing on the shape more than whether they sound right yet, or whether they sound like a song yet. By the way, when I do this, I mean more than the strumming. That's not just a weird tick I have. All right, go for it. All right, cool. Relax 1 second. So good. We're going to look at the strumming, because this is something that every week so far I've been like, I'm going to cover this week in the recording, and I never get around to it. So we're going to make sure it's in this one so that you can do it. If you like this chord stuff, that's awesome. We're going to do more of it next time. And also it's in the other recordings too, so you can have access to those. And if you haven't been getting access to them, then you just email me and I'll send you them. It's no problem. So we're going to look at some strumming stuff. And for that, I am going to first stop sharing my screen so you guys can see me, and then we'll go back to screen share in a minute. So what I want to talk about with, oh, and I've put the wrong person on my screen there. Okay, let me put myself on my screen. Great. So what I want to talk about with the strumming is, first of all, we're going to get used to whether we're going to use fingers or a pick. Okay, and it's up to you which one you use, but I would recommend trying out both with the strumming. So if I grab a pick, we'll talk about this first because fingers make sense once you have a pick. So you take a pick and you want to hold it between your thumb and first finger. That's the general rule first. It's thumb and first finger. I've seen all sorts of other crazy ways of holding the pick. Some people make it work for them, good for them, but I will always teach thumb and first finger is the way. And then the next piece is, if thumb and first finger is, I would actually recommend trying to get it on the side of this first finger and in between the thumb here, which is a little bit strange for people. But thumb and first finger is the first rule. Next up is, if you can do this, that's great, which is, I think of it like Captain Hook's hook. R is like this. And then we put the pick on the side of it. And I guess not just Captain Hook's hook, anyone's, if they had a hook for a hand, would be also like that. And then you put your thumb over the top of it like this, and you end up with it like this. Okay, and now the important thing as we're going through the guitar is we want to get used to the motion of what it feels like going through the guitar. And what I see most people try and do is like try and press it through, and then they keep a really stiff wrist and they get this go on. And most of what I want you to get used to with the pick is just like allowing it to bounce through the strings. So you need to hold on to the pick, but you relax the rest of your wrist. And you're just going to push it and let it bounce through, rather than trying to like force it through the strings. You want to let it bounce through them. And think of it a little bit. And this, when we're moving down this way, so towards the floor, it's called a downstroke. And when we move towards the ceiling or your face, that's called an upstroke. And they feel different. They sound different because one's going from low notes to high notes, one's going from high notes to low notes. And you want to just get used to kind of going one after another, down and up. And that's the first thing we do, is just get used to it. I know I was strumming some chords. You don't have to strum chords with this. You just need to get used to what's going on there with the down and up, because it relates to what we're going to do next. So I mean, I just want to know how you guys, oh, and I said about fingers. Do any of you not have a pick with you and you want to do fingers for this? All right, cool. So Liam, let's talk about fingers quickly. Fingers is exactly the same principle of like trying to keep a relaxed wrist. The only difference is, instead of having downstrokes and upstrokes of the pick, you've only got fingers. So as we're doing downstroke, which is from ceiling to floor, I'm going to use my first finger and I'm going to use the nail on it. Okay. And I kind of hold my fingers like I had a pick, or like I had a sewing needle, I guess, or a very small teacup. Things which we can imagine with this. Okay. So we're going to use this finger. And then when we do the upstroke, we're going to use our thumb. Okay. Which would come up towards the ceiling. So if I show you on the guitar what that looks like. Now it might catch your thumb or your finger a little bit, depending on how short or long your nails are. And it also, sometimes when you get a bit, you're going to catch your cuticles and that hurts, right? But it's going to build up toughness. I remember like this hurting a bit when I would catch the wrong place. But the nice thing about catching your cuticles is it's like real-time feedback that you put the string in the wrong place. Like it's very real. When you're playing with a pick, it doesn't give you such amazing feedback. You can put it kind of in the wrong part of the pick and never know. You will know when you hit your cuticle. And the other thing is you're as you're doing it, you're going to build up those calluses as you go. And like, even if it bleeds, like not that this will happen when you're doing it now, but I remember when I was my first few gigs, I wasn't very good at holding onto the pick. So in the middle of a song, my pick flew out of my hand and I was like, well, I can't stop. So I was like playing in a rock band and I had to keep going with my hand. And I was, by the end of the gig, I was bleeding. And so I learned that day to have more than one pick on stage. And also I learned that I needed to learn how to hold the pick correctly so I didn't drop it. But my cuticles hardened up, so it wasn't such a big issue in the long run. So yeah, so try and do it with either hands or with your pick just for a second, kind of get used to that up and down motion. And then I'm going to show you how I want you to practice this, because we're going to put some actual strumming together today. Yeah, good. Nim, you look like you got it going on over there. It looks good. This is one of the things where teaching with no sound is like, you look like a rock star right now. Yeah, good. And for all of you guys, I was going to say, it's like when we're doing the actual exercise parts, if as much as your faces are all beautiful and they're lovely to see, like actually for teaching, it's actually kind of useful to see your hands and the guitar. So if you want to point the camera at your guitar and then I can give you feedback, I think that's really useful for me. Even without sound, I can kind of see what's going on with movements. Yeah, good. Some nice looking guitars. I like the surf green on your guitar too, Annette. I think that's really cool. It's beautiful. Is that a Fender? Yeah, cool. It looks great.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, it looks great. Yeah, this looks good. All of you kind of got that motion going down. That looks really nice. And it just, you want to settle in. And so actually, you can see as you kind of get the motion going more, it really is like you want it to be nice and relaxed and able to just move up and down. So it's a constant motion. So if I think like a song would be going like bam, 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 bam. I want to be able to match that kind of pace. And actually, we'll talk about that now briefly and we'll look at some patterns. So this next bit is where if you brought a notebook and a pen, then you are today's hero. Something which I ask all my students to do is notebook and a pen, but you guys you're not in one of our actual lessons, so I never scold students for it. But notebook and pen is really important because taking notes on this next bit is really important and it'll help you. So I'm gonna, probably the best way to do this is to insert a little table. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we do a few different this way. Okay. Let's see what happens here. Okay, so when we're playing on the guitar and we're playing in a song, we've got a thing called beats or a pulse. Okay, and if you've ever heard anything ever at the beginning of the song where a drummer goes 1, 2, 3, 4, that's what that is. He's counting the pulse, he's counting the beats, and then actually that pulse continues for the whole rest of the song at that speed. We just don't hear him counting 1, 2, 3, 4 because it would rather get in the way of the lyrics and the listening bit of enjoying. That's for the musicians to kind of know. That's really what that is. And then our strums have to fall in line with that pulse somewhere. Okay, so if I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I might strum on every one of those beats, or I might strum not on every one of those beats. So we're going to start playing with some rhythm games to look at that. So the first kind of most basic way of playing is to literally strum on every beat. So you imagine it was like, and that D is for down, by the way, would be like down, 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 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, So that's kind of option number one. And then everything on the guitar is about when you remove things with strumming. It's normally when you remove things, it gets harder rather than when you add things. So down, 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 down is probably the easiest one we're ever going to do. And these other ones are not that difficult, but it does get a little bit difficult as we get further down this page. So if we were to do down, down, nothing, down, that would be the second example. Okay. So this is 1, 2, and that 3 still has to be counted. So if you were tapping your foot, or I encourage people to like kind of rock their body for the pulse rather than tap your foot, you would still, the pulse still goes there. We just don't play anything on it. So it would sound like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we're missing out beat 3, but we're still strumming on the 4. Okay. And the next one we could do, and I'm showing you the options. We're going to practice this in a second. So don't worry if you're like, oh no, you're moving too fast. Don't worry. I'm just showing you the options because this is the way you're going to practice. We could do down on here, nothing on 2, and then we play on 3 and 4. So da, like 1, 2, 3, 4, da, 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 down, down, down. Okay. Now you see, like, hopefully you begin to see a pattern here. I'm not going to go through and do every example of these, but what I'm trying to give you is, instead of going, go learn this specific strumming pattern, I'm trying to give you like the matrix or the way of working out your own strumming patterns. And then you need to practice them all is the answer. Because by doing that, it's not like you learn one and then you're done. It's that you need to kind of practice them all, because eventually you'll just kind of sit into it and you'll be able to play any of them, no problem. So try out these ones and you can try them. So if it's really a challenge just to kind of do the strumming, you would do number 1 and you try and get the pulse going. You have to remember the pulse comes first. So you set a slow speed. You don't have to count out loud, but you do have to move some part of your body. That's my rule. So if like you want to move your chest, that's cool. If you want to tap your feet, that's cool. I'll just have to trust you because I don't want to see foot cam. But if you kind of want to work in that way, then you just want to move something and then you want to get these in line with those. Number 2, slightly more difficult. And if they're all easy, then what you do is you try and shift from, okay, you do 1 bar of 2, 1 bar of 3, 1 bar of 2, 1 bar of 3. So I go like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it becomes a little bit of a tongue twister for your brain. Okay, but you work out how difficult it is for you, and we're gonna kind of practice this a little bit. All I'm gonna do is keep pulse and count. You're gonna decide which of the strumming patterns you're doing, or if you don't want to do these, you can do a more difficult one, or you can write another one out for yourself. Okay, does that make sense? Just give me a thumbs up if you're kind of with me in that. We're all good. All right, good, fantastic. So I'm just going to count us in and we're going to stay on this. I'm only holding an E minor in my left hand because I don't even care about it. I'm just worrying about what's going over here. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 2, 2, 3. All right, good. Very good. So one thing that you can do at home, this is a little exercise just for your brain. If you would like to, and you don't have to, you could just take these 3 and practice them. One thing that would be cool is if you can work out what are the other things you could play in just 4 beats. If you're only allowed to play on each of those beats, what are the other different patterns that are available? So there's one that has 1 and 4 on every beat. There's one that has kind of 1s on 3 of the beats. And this is something people normally find fun to work out if you enjoy like very basic maths challenges. And some of my students do and some of them don't. So some people I'm like, see if you can work out how many there are. And they're like, that sounds like fun. Other people are like, that sounds terrible. I don't want to do that at all. But if you have a go, then I'll tell you if the answers are right and I can send you back the full list of answers. But if not, it's a very simple principle. You just write 1, 2, 3, 4 at the top of a piece of blank paper, and then you write D, D on random ones, and you practice them at a certain speed. Does that make sense? Good. And how do we find this? Fairly easy or difficult, or is anyone finding this significantly difficult? Or do we all, if it's easy, kind of put your thumb up and we're okay. If it's like in between, do the hand of in between. All right, cool. You have the hand in between. And if it's really hard, then do the hand of like, that's terrible. Okay, no one's hard. All right, fine. So it's good that you can see this. Now I want to bring in those upstrokes and we'll look at how that works a little bit just so you can see. So the upstrokes always kind of work in these spaces. So if we're playing on 1, 2, 3, 4, we can divide time up into equal spaces. And maybe I should have put this all as like, maybe I shall reformat my piece of art over here and we'll put it all in. So you can see in between each of these, I could say 1, 2, 3, 4, but with keeping the 1, 2, 3, 4 exactly the same speed, in between I can say and. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then here would be the and. I know that's confusing sometimes, people. So 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's where our upstrokes go. So if I was going to do the full version of that, and maybe I'll put that down here. Oh no, we'll redo the whole thing from up the top. So our upstrokes would go here when we're practicing, is they go in the spaces where I'm playing. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, we've got 1, 2, 3, and what's great about this is it's the same exact movement you were already doing. You were already having to bring your hand up to play the number 2. Now you're just going to bring it with the pick through the strings. Okay. So when you do this, and if you can do it and you can say 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and or 1, 2, 3, 4 out loud yourself, that's awesome because that's also a little mini goal that you can do, but it's hard to move your mouth and play at the same time. Okay. But you can try it a little bit and maybe just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. And I promise you, you're all muted right now, so you're not shouting at me. All right, cool. So I'm gonna take a steady pace, and you guys are gonna join in. And if you can pick any of the rhythm we've done so far, but you can also try this down, up, down, up. And what I would do is you're gonna try and do different ones. So you can do the down, up, down, up, down, up one that we're doing now, and then switch back to just down, 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 down. And what would be a better idea is if we do all of that together. So if I put this in here, and I'm going to remove this one up here. And you guys are going to have to use it because I haven't written on the side which the numbers are. So I'm just going to call out, this will be pattern number 1. This is pattern number 2. This is pattern number 3, pattern number 4. So if you want to follow along with me, I'm going to shout out which pattern we're doing and you can kind of follow on. If you want to just ignore me and just play your own pattern, believe me, I can't stop you. But if you want to follow with me, you can do that too. All right, we're ready. 1, 2, we're doing pattern number 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Still pattern number 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going for pattern number 2 at the end of this. 3, here we go. 1, 2, nothing on the 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. We're going for pattern number 3. 4, here we go. 1, nothing. 3, 4, 1, nothing. 3, 4, number 3. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pat number 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Pat number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pat number 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Pat number 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Stop. Well done. How are we getting on? How's fingertips feeling? Yeah, some smiles. Like, I'm okay. We're okay. All right, good. So you guys done a really nice job so far, and we're getting close to the end. So I want to make sure I ask now if you guys have any questions about anything on the guitar. Now's a really good time to ask, and you can just unmute yourself. You guys are like, no. All right, then that's fine. You're like, no, I don't have any questions. That's fine. So I want to talk to you about homework if you want to do some. If you don't want to do it, you don't worry about this and you just pick up your guitar. And really the first thing is to make sure you just pick up your guitar every day. So Liam, congratulations. You have a guitar as of today, the 11th of May, I think it is. From this day forward, you are a musician. I bestow it upon you. You need to make sure you just pick it up every day, because that's really the habit first, is picking it up. And have fun with it. Don't worry. And I know this is easier said than done, but don't worry so much about what you're practicing. Just think about the fact that you are picking it up. That's the number one thing, because that's, I could say that to anyone at any stage of musicianship. If you're not picking it up, it doesn't matter what you're practicing. And if you are picking it up, then we begin the conversation. Now, assuming once you're picking it up, the next thing to do is to learn those chords and quiz yourself on them. That's it. Quiz yourself on them. And the best thing about those chord shapes is actually, this is for Nim too, I know you had a busy week, you can quiz yourself on those chord shapes in midair when you haven't got your guitar with you. So it's a great thing. You can kind of do it over lunch. And so even if we have a busy day, the one thing we never like miss in life probably is lunch. I would never miss lunch, but you might sometimes. But okay, if you have some point in your day, you just try and like in air, imagine where those chord shapes are. And this sounds a little bit crazy when people first hear it, but I'm telling you, I've taught a lot of guitar players, and the people who learn to play fast are the ones who have a really strong picture in their head of where those chords are. And I can ask them without a guitar, what's a G? And they go, this. Okay, because they've been practicing it while they're driving. They've been practicing it while they're watching TV without their guitar. And that is true for beginners right up. And actually, Karis is in the session today. She's super quiet. She's a teacher of ours too. And she kind of started learning guitar with me maybe 3 years ago. And you weren't a total beginner when you came for lessons, but now she's a teacher. And we see the same thing all the time. It's like people who do the visualization stuff and they really have a picture and test themselves like, can I imagine what the G looks like? Other people who get really good, and people who just like always look at the sheet for it and never getting off the sheet. Like, and it could be like 6 months, it could be 9 months. Like, you have to have that picture in your head. And it's really just, you can either wait and see if I'm right, or you can just go on the basis that I'm right. And I don't mind which it is, because I haven't got an ego about this. but it really helps when you do that imagination work and picture them. So for Nim, you can do your practice this week, driving to and from work, walking to and from the train. If that's however you get there, you can do practice on it. And then the other piece of homework is to do this if you want to. So this is slightly less important for me at the beginning, but this strumming stuff is really important because it's the bit that makes it sound like music. Is you make up some different ones of these and then you have a go at them. The nice thing about the strumming is it's another thing you can practice away from the guitar, something I'm really big on because normally people are really busy in London, except right now everyone's stuck at home. So I don't talk about this as much in these sessions. But I'm going to talk about it anyway, so I always think about chord shapes you can practice in your head and with your hand in midair, and it is really helpful, 100%. Strumming, you can practice by making this movement in the air, but it's not quite the way that it looks. So you're actually just going to do it on your leg, and people won't notice, I promise. You put some headphones in on the train, and people won't notice. You will look less crazy. So the seam of my jeans is quite a good place to practice strumming on, because it looks like this, and you just move your hand back and forth, and then you put some music on and you practice that movement because you get used to like, oh, the wrist function, because it's slightly odd with it. And then you can practice, obviously, you grab a piece of paper, you practice any of these strumming patterns, you can do it on your leg on the train or in the privacy of your own home at the moment, which is what everyone's probably going to do. All right, so you guys have done a wonderful job today. We've got a couple more minutes. Is there anything that anyone wanted to ask about or discuss about before I send you off to do some practice on your own?
Sorry, one quick one, Daryl. Did you say would you recommend then I get a well, the triangle thing, I can't remember the name of it. Got a name.
Metronome.
For when I do strum. If I need for when I strum, do you recommend I do it with my hands, or do I actually get one of the?
Oh, a pick.
Yeah, pick.
These things. I would recommend getting some and trying some, 100%, because they're so cheap. And I recommend buying more than one, because these things are like they just disappear.
Yeah.
They when I teach, what I've noticed is that picks disappear and pens appear. So like I'm putting out picks into the world and pens are just coming back to me, right? But you're gonna have the same. So these will come, they'll find in your washing or something. So you'll need more than one. I would buy like a pack of 10 to begin with, but I started buying them in packs of 100 because I don't know what I do with them. They vanish, there's a black hole. But yes, I would buy one and I would try it, because you're not going to know until you try. And part of learning the guitar is exploring different things and getting to know them on the instrument. It's not all it is. It's not just like, oh, go play. I don't believe in that. I do believe in like learning specific things, but there are things like pick you're never going to know until you do it. And the answer is, for me, I play with both because different sounds and they're useful. And sometimes I don't have a pick on me and I don't want to be like, can't play guitar today. Clearly I don't have a pick on me most of the time because I lose them, even if I carry like 10 around with me. But maybe my pockets just have holes in. So yes, I would recommend buying one, absolutely. They're called guitar picks, or plectrums is the other name you'll sometimes heard them called. But if you look up guitar pick, then you'll find them all over the internet. And let me tell you what to buy, just so you have an idea. You want to look for something, as a beginner, the easiest pick to use is there's different size widths on them. So for instance, here is one of our really old school branded picks that we used to have. We don't have these anymore. These are from like 3 or 4 years ago, but I still have one here as a memento. The different thickness between picks you can have is okay. And as a beginner, I'd recommend something like a 0.7. That's what you're looking for. And I think that's like 0.7 of a millimeter is the actual measurement that it is, or maybe it's 0.7, 0.00. I don't know what it is. But anyway, if you type 0.7, it comes up with the correct thing. And you look for that as a beginner. That's pretty good. And it's going to be good for now because it'll bend slightly as you click through the guitar strings. If I was working with you in person, I would actually put you on a thicker pick because that would force you to have better technique. But because I can't see you at the moment and I'm not going to know, I'm going to recommend you go for something on the thinner side so it's not encumbering you. Like some of the things I'll do in person is I'll actually make things hard for people because I want them to be forced to have technique. But I'm not going to do that to you over the internet, considering last week Nim spent an hour playing with me and I didn't realize he had the guitar upside down. So So I'm glad we talked about that at the beginning today as well, Liam, your guitar too.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So check out the pick. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we go?
Just a quick
Yeah.
one. You know, when you're tightening the strings, when you finish
Yes.
playing the guitar, should you unloosen them?
No.
No? Okay.
No, you can. That is a thing. Is that a thing on violin, Karis? No, it's not. Okay. For some reason, I've got like memories of that.
There's an Indian instrument called a
Yeah.
dumbi, and that has, you have to unloosen it before you leave.
Huh.
You can't leave it stretched. So that's fine then.
Yeah, we don't do that on guitar. What you should get in the habit of trying to tune it before every time you play, though, because they do go out of tune. It's hot at the moment. Like my flat has these windows where the sun's coming in, which I know. I said this to Karis the other week, and she was like, "Oh, woe is you! You're flat with the windows." But it's heating up my guitars and bending the strings out of tune. And I was like, it's a nightmare. And so the heat at the moment is going to warp them, and the cold in the winter does kind of do things to them. So you should be tuning up each time. It's good
How do you
practice.
know they're tuned right?
You buy a tuner, a guitar tuner, which I don't have an example of right here.
What are these?
No, that's a pitch pipe that comes with them, and that is probably one of the hardest ways to tune under the sun. What I recommend, Nim, is if you pop in the chat your email address, if you can get that up on here, pop in the chat. Karis will send you the video I do on tuning, and it'll tell you what to buy. Like in the video, it tells you what to buy on there. So, you know, I have a little video that I can send any of you on how to tune the guitar, and it tells you what to buy if you want to buy a tuner. That's the way.
Okay.
You know. Okay.
Brilliant.
Yeah, good. All right, well done, guys. Well, I'll see you next week, hopefully. If you have any questions in the week time, you can email them over. I can't promise that I will do an immediate response, but probably what I'll end up doing if I haven't responded is put them in the answers for next week video. So if you're like, oh, we haven't done this yet, just ask me and I'll put them in next week video, and I'll see you in the week. Have a wonderful time. Catch you later, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Top man.